and welcome to GodPods, Faith Conversation podcast brought to you by the Church in the 21st Century Center at Boston College. My name is Lynn Baradelli, and I am the Associate Director of the Center and Managing Editor of C21 Resources, a complimentary magazine which offers a compilation of articles on key challenges facing the Church today. The issue published fall of 2024, Liberal Arts Education, Its Value and Impact, is dedicated to education in the Jesuit Catholic tradition. This episode is part of a series highlighting the magazine and is titled How to Be Attentive, Reflective, and Loving. This is the third conversation in a series with recent graduates led by the guest editor of this issue, Elizabeth Shlala, who serves as Associate Dean and Professor of the Practice in the University Core Curriculum. Professor Shlala spoke with Sam and Emily Schelbe, recently married 2021 graduates, who share insights and advice on their experience in and formation through Jesuit education. Enjoy the podcast.
Sam and Emily, it's so amazing to have you speak with me today. It's been, now you were class of 2021, so how many years has it been since you graduated?
Too many.
This is our fourth year post-grad, I think. Yeah.
Post-grad.
Yeah.
And you are recently married?
Mm-hmm.
Recently married 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Wow. What was the date?
July 20th.
Very nice. Myself, July 21st. I can't.
Oh yeah, you said that.
That's excellent.
Love it.
Great. So you're both BC grads, class of 2021, recently married. So tell me a little bit. Well, first of all, when did you meet? Did you meet the last day of BC, first day? What's your story?
We met before our freshman year classes even really started because we were both in the CSUM honors program, which I believe is no longer in existence, but we moved in early for that. And yeah, we met before classes even started, kind of as part of that cohort of like 30 something students. And then we had a few classes together in the fall. And then we started dating December of freshman year. So it really didn't take very long.
Do you live in the same dorm? Like where were you?
No, it was long distance. I was on Upper and Sam was on Newton.
Yep.
But we made it work.
Long bus ride away.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, a lot of the students love living on Newton now because that Newton has a real community feel, which a lot of the students go for. And so, yes, they make it work. I guess you saw each other in classes too, which was great.
Yeah. We did.
Yeah, I had a great time over there. I was like Stuart, kind of like a homey ski lodge vibe in there.
You chalet.
So Emily, I knew you from when you were an undergraduate, and I remember talking to you about how BC's Catholic Jesuit mission and environment were kind of different to what you had experienced as a high schooler. So remind me a little bit about what kind of high school you went to and what drew you to BC.
Yeah, so I went to a public high school. It was in Keller, Texas, so kind of a suburb of Dallas-Fort Worth, so very far away geographically, and then also in kind of the spiritual sense, I would also say it was very far away. And I was raised Methodist, actually. So the kind of BC was the only Catholic school that I applied to. It wasn't really a factor, I'd say, in my decision to go there. My uncle had went to BC and worked there for many years. You may have heard of him, Greg Brown, men's head hockey coach. Shout out to the team. They're doing great this year. So he had kind of, I guess, exposed me to BC, and I was familiar with it, his time there, and how much he loved it and loved everything it stood for. And then my cousin, his daughter, went there, so I got the chance to visit her and that sort of thing. But yeah, I kind of immediately fell in love with, I think, some of the other aspects of the school, like the community vibe, and the campus is obviously beautiful. And I think I really saw myself back in Boston and just having kind of a change of pace. But yeah, the Jesuit Catholic identity, I think, was not really something that I was factoring in coming from that public school Methodist background. My life, I think, in high school was pretty separated into, you went to school, and then I was really into figure skating. So that's what I would do before and after school, hanging out with my friends, but it felt kind of like very separate things. And then I think when I came to BC, all of a sudden it was like, oh, I don't know, the emphasis on the full person, I think, is something that I really felt and appreciated. And then, yeah, started to really dive into some of the campus ministry aspects too, and just it totally took me by surprise, and I loved it.
So, Sam, I haven't had the chance to talk to you before, but I know and appreciate so many people whose lives you've touched on campus, including, of course, Emily, right? So tell me a little bit about what your process was like in choosing Boston College to come to, and how that was the same or different to how you had grown up, or like what your high school experience was.
Sure. My older brother, who's Ted, who's 5 years older than me, went to BC. The first time I set foot on campus, I was in 8th grade. Our family was visiting him, and I remember saying to my parents, "I'm going here." But I think in middle school, you kind of think every college campus is just the coolest thing ever. But unlike Emily, I went to a Catholic high school, a Jesuit all-boys high school, Marquette University High School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So by the time I was a junior, senior in high school, I think that whole Jesuit vibe had become my bread and butter. I was like a big basketball and soccer player in middle school, and then I got to this big high school and got cut from the basketball team in the first cut, my 5'2" freshman self. And so I lost something that was a big part of my identity, but what sort of started to fill that place and what I started to really fall in love with was campus ministry and doing retreats, and then ultimately leading retreats and things like that. And so I knew I wanted to continue that in college, and I wanted to be at a place that would remind me of what I had experienced in high school and help me kind of continue to deepen my faith and share that with other people. And so looking at BC, then when I went back again and visited my brother, my junior year of high school, he was now a senior at BC, and meeting all of his friends and his professors, I was just so struck by how driven and intelligent and ambitious everybody was, but at the same time, how kind and funny and fun and sincere and driven by service everybody was. I just kept thinking to myself, like, these are the sort of people that I want to surround myself with and I want to become like someday. So I got that same feeling in high school that I had as an 8th grader. This place feels like home. And it reminded me of all my favorite parts of the culture in my high school.
Emily, for you, it didn't quite feel like home at first. Was there a turning point? Was there something you did? How did you find your way in BC's culture?
Yeah, I think that it was interesting. I think that when I came, I probably first dove into the things that were familiar to me from high school. So I joined the club figure skating team, and I was really into kind of my classes and that kind of thing. But I think probably a big turning point for me in that freshman year, and kind of like an eye-opening moment, was I went on APA in the spring of my freshman year, which is Appalachia Volunteers. I assume it's still at BC today, but it was one of the largest service organizations at BC, if not the largest. So many people do it, especially freshman year. So I kind of lucked into that, I think, and had an incredible experience on that trip. We went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana with my group. There was probably about 8 to 10 of us. I don't remember the exact number. And I think it was such a cool, eye-opening experience because it was really my first exposure to that level of reflection that I think is common in so many of BC's campus ministry offerings, but wasn't something that I had experienced at all in high school. It was really my first retreat-like experience. And then on top of that, to be in Baton Rouge in just a completely different area than I'd ever been to, and understanding the history there and the struggles that region was facing. And I don't know, I think I walked away from that trip feeling like, oh my gosh, this is something totally different than what I've seen before, what I've known. And I think it really opened my eyes to like a lot of things, and to really the value that Jesuit Catholic piece brings. And I think it set a foundation for me to kind of continue to be involved in campus ministry and gaining from that, and hopefully helping others to gain from that in kind of my remaining 3 years at BC.
So you're both graduated from the Carroll School of Management, and you both took advantage of retreats, service trips, other opportunities but it's within the foundation of the liberal arts, right? And within the core. Can you talk to your experience of how those experiences, particularly through reflection, maybe connected to some of your coursework in the core? Can you think of anything in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first example that comes to mind for me is, and this is more of, I guess, a CSUM core class, but in Portico, which is kind of the freshman introductory business ethics course, that was one of the first times that I had really been exposed to any level of of reflection or anything like that. And I think it was just such a cool thing. I remember, I think we wrote letters in that class to our senior selves, and then our professor delivered them to us our senior year, which I had by that time totally forgotten I had written it. But it was such a cool thing to get to see like what I was thinking as a freshman and how much had transpired in that time and how much I had grown and that sort of thing. So I think that's one of the prime examples that I think of when I think of like the early introductions to reflection in my classes at BC.
How about you, Sam? Were there any of your core classes that spoke to you in particular, or was it sort of a higher level work that you did that connected the service and the mission piece of Boston College to your curricular?
I was thinking of Portico too. I've used
Perspectives. I forgot about
perspectives.
Did you both take perspectives?
We both took perspectives.
Perspectives I loved because having gone to like taken theology classes all through high school, I never took anything like a world religions course or any theology from any angle other than the Catholic angle. And so to be exposed to different philosophers and, no pun intended, perspectives was really, really cool freshman year, because I was used to and very interested in asking those deep questions about our existence and our purpose. But I think I had a narrow lens of the way I had been looking at it previously. So it was really helpful for me to be exposed to different thinkers. I think back to Portico too and CSOM, there were thought exercises we did in that class that I still remember, and some of which I've even used in my high school classes this year. Just different stories and things like that I've had students read and discuss. And it always strikes me as I think back that was a business class because it was so outwardly focused and morally driven. Yeah.
Okay, well, you've just opened up the door. So what are you doing now? What is this high school classes? And
Oh yeah,
stuff? What are you doing now, Sam? Yeah,
some
what are you
context
doing?
there. As a former CSOMer, I am now teaching high school theology at a Jesuit high school out here in Denver. So I was just to give a timeline here. My first year out of college, I worked for a consulting firm, did like higher education strategy and finance and accounting related budgeting consulting work. So behind a computer screen, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of data crunching in Excel. And it was a great job. And I feel really lucky that I had that job, especially on the tail end of COVID. But I could always kind of tell there was, in my gut, there was just this pull to go do something related to my faith. Like I never felt more alive than in high school and at BC than when I was on retreats, leading retreats in theology class. I really found a home in those spaces and felt like it wasn't just something I was meant to enjoy for those 4 years, but something that I was really meant to pursue as a career. So I didn't know what sort of jobs to look at, but I knew I wanted to go deeper with my faith. And so that led me to come back to BC for a 2-year master's in theology and ministry. And during those years, it started to feel clear to me that I really wanted to try out teaching and sharing this gift of everything I had learned in theology and philosophy classes with others. So that's what has led me now back to the classroom as a teacher. And so I just wrapped up my first semester ever, and we're kicking off semester 2. Yeah. And we're staying afloat, and it's a joy, and every day is a joy and a challenge. Yeah.
Definitely living the man for others motto there, I'd say. So that's interesting. So then you went back and did the master's. What other aspects of campus ministry, or what was your sort of process of discernment when you were a Boston? So you're a CSAW major, you're doing great, you're getting a consulting job, but also there's this personal journey to adulthood through your faith and what that's all going to mean. Would you mind sharing a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Like my former BC roommates would all tell you, like the joke would be like any weeknight I'd say, all right, guys, I gotta go. They'd be like, what is it? For Boston, Kairos, HEPA, Freshman League. Which one is it tonight? I'm like, some combination of the two of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did enjoy all my CSOM classes, but where I really loved to fill my free time was in those spaces in campus ministry, especially Kairos senior year. I had the blessing of getting to serve as a co-director, and that was COVID year. So we were pulling off on campus, masked up, socially distanced Kairos. And so things like that in Freshman League and Ever to Excel. By the time I was a senior, I just found myself a leader in all those spaces. And that's what I go back to. Like I just never felt more alive than when I was in those spaces, walking with people, asking big questions and walking with them through that. And so my faith had always meant a lot to me, but I think I thought for a long time that I could just maybe work in a space completely disconnected from my faith and have it be something that I still could feel fulfilled in on the side. But my first year out of BC made it clear to me that it wasn't just something I wanted to tend to on my own, but something that I felt really called to share with others in a particular way. So I listened to that tug, and that's what sort of brought me back to BC.
So Emily, I think I told you this all the time, as I tell so many of my students, but yes, you're a CSOM and you were thriving, but you also had all the skills, right? You could have easily have been, in my estimation, a history major, which is a huge compliment, as you know. But as you sort of managed all the activities you were in, service trips, really a full plate of CSOM offerings and the core. You have a relationship. You have how do you manage all of that? Is it a faith journey? Is it just what sort of inspired you during that time? What brought you joy? Again, we were dealing with COVID, right? For a good chunk of it. Well, so
yeah, absolutely.
mentors, perhaps, maybe mentorship.
I mean, I think the beautiful thing about BC for me was that it was all of those things. It wasn't really just one thing. I think if it had been, then maybe there would have been a little bit more struggle involved or maybe less of the outcomes that I wanted. But yeah, so I think that immediately when I came to BC, I think that I was really blessed to find myself in that little community and see some that I found myself in and had access to all of these amazing upperclassmen mentors who were just a few years older than me. And as an oldest child, that's not really something that I ever had, was like a close relationship with people a few years older than me who could really give you that solid advice. And having been there so recently themselves, I think that was really invaluable in my first few years and something that I leaned on time and time again. And then I think there comes this crazy shift where you're a junior, you're a senior, and you're like, oh shoot, all of a sudden, like I'm supposed to be the one with the answers. Like I'm the one I'm the age that I'd been looking up to for all of these years. And I think that's when I started to lean a little bit more on some of the faculty connections that I had made. So yourself, Elizabeth, was obviously a very helpful resource. We worked pretty closely with Dean Ethan Sullivan in CSUM as well. And he was a great guide kind of through the more corporate side of things. Honestly, I think Sam was a great and a very stable part of my BC life, which was such a blessing. And I know not every college relationship is as fortunate as that. So I'm very grateful. But he was always someone who I could go to for support. And when things were changing with friends or school felt too overwhelming, or I went through a few kind of health and mental health struggles, I think he was always there and always pointing me back towards my faith or towards things like that were going to kind of keep me centered and keep me going.
That's great. Sam, you talk about, I really hear that there's joy in accompaniment for you, and it's a kind of very faith-based one. But yeah, you met Emily and you knew each other since freshman year. You were in a relationship, but your relationship with God was very strong as well. Like, did you feel at some point a call to further pursue that? And if so, what was that process like?
Definitely. I felt some sort of a call that I spent several years trying to figure out what it meant for me. It was like my sophomore year of high school that I think I first put that to words, that I felt some sort of a call to maybe become a priest someday. I go back to like the feelings that I had from high school, being on religious retreats for the first times and hearing like a voice in my heart of love and warmth and compassion at a time that I really needed that, and thinking, oh my goodness, like whatever this is, I need to do whatever I can to pursue it. And over the years, I also, part of the joy of accompaniment then is remembering that feeling and what that was like the first time, and wanting to help give others a chance or provide the space for others to maybe find it or find something similar. And so, yeah, for a long time I thought, and there were times where I thought for high school, early college, where I thought almost for sure it felt like clear that I was feeling a call to the priesthood. And I remember I talked to Father Casey Bomir my freshman year. This was like right around when I asked Emily out. And I told him what I was thinking about. And he said, you should ask this girl out. Like you definitely, I had never had a serious girlfriend on any level at that point. And it's like, you should definitely ask this girl out and see what happens and go from there. But you're 18. There's no need to jump into anything too quickly. And so I did. And that began, I think, for the two of us, a few years of dating while I was sort of discerning that. And it was an on and off thing. Sometimes I'd try to just hide those desires away in the corner and pretend that they weren't there. And I wasn't thinking about that because I was so happy with Emily and our relationship. And I just wanted to enjoy that and be able to prioritize it fully. But I couldn't push it away. And so I think that was a part of the reason that I stayed in CSOM and tried to work in consulting too. I think I saw the whole ministry path as like it's either 0 or 100. Like I will become a priest and that will be my life, or I will not, and I won't do anything related to that. And I don't know why I thought of it that way, but I think part of it was like an ego thing. Like if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it the biggest, most public way. Be a clear leader in the church, things like that. And that's the only way I saw myself going down a path of ministry. But yeah, it was really that first year out of college that it all came to a head. And I think I realized in that first job how much I felt pulled to something else. That was when I really kind of had to say, like, I need to finally give this question the intentional prayer and discernment that it deserves, because I've been sort of hiding from it for the last few years, and we've been dating for 4 years now, and it was hard to have to say that, like, I love you and I want to be with you, but I need to figure this out, and I'm not 100% sure if God is calling me to something else right now. And it frustrates me that I don't know, but I need to give this more thought and more prayer and more time. When I did tell her that, her response was, of course, you need to give this the time and the prayer that it deserves. I'm not going to get in the way of you and God on this. And however long it takes, I'll be here.
Knowing Emily, I'm not surprised that was a response, but I bet you were terrified.
I was
that, right?
Yeah, I was. And it felt so freeing to be given that space and time to really honestly and openly discern the way that I needed to. And it was also that conversation and the way that, like, she walked with me through that process, that once it became clear that to me through prayer that this wasn't really the priesthood wasn't the going to be the path for me, it just felt so clear that she was the person I wanted to spend my life with and go through the future challenges of life with, and the future big decisions and all that stuff. So yes, long answer to your question, but yes, it definitely.
Yeah, like as a part of your relationship, what a bedrock, right? What a foundation of trust and love and courage to show each other to do whatever the next step would be. Like almost the friendship comes first, right?
Yeah, I think there have been times too where we've both kind of had to almost wait for the other person and kind of show that patience. And I mentioned earlier some mental health struggles that I had when we were in college. So that had been a few years prior. And I think Sam kind of showed me that same grace and patience in that time. So in my mind, it was really the only way to proceed there. But I think both of those things were foundational, in our relationship and part of our story now.
That's right. And Sam, then again, you have to discern, I'm sure through prayer and reflection, I've got the job, I've got the consulting job, right? Like that's moving again to something that seems more authentic, truer to you, that maybe is not as, I don't know, whatever the idea you had in your mind of, right, what you would do. Have these been graces? How would you characterize your relationship with God in those moments? Have those been growth moments for you? These times when you had a choice between two good things, which is really discernment. Two good things, not a good and a bad. That's easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two great things.
I mean, absolutely. I think that something that I struggled with so much with my relationship with God when the whole priesthood discernment process came to a head was thinking, like, I had this frustration of, like, trying to put my own desires aside in order to figure out what God wanted for me. And I never thought like, oh, God might just be speaking to me through my desires. I think it built up some level of almost resentment towards God. Like, why are you making me choose? Like, why do I have to? I do feel a call towards some sort of ministry, and I do feel this clear call to be with Emily and marry her and have this life together. And so I think I had a little bit of that resentment. And it was when that clarity came that I felt so much peace one day in prayer when I just said, God, I don't want to be a priest. I want to marry Emily. And I felt this sigh of relief almost come from above, like, thank you. I've known that all along for the last 4 years. And finally you just said it instead of just saying, God, tell me what you want me to do, what you want me to do. And so it was shortly after that's when I realized this, but this also this call, this pull to ministry is not going away because that's been placed on my heart. And that's deeply good too. And so these last 3 years have just, for me, been like a beautiful, and the way that Emily's sort of supported me through that decision to leave the job and go to grad school and pursue a new lower paying job has just been this beautiful reminder that God wouldn't have placed desires that deep on my heart if they weren't worth pursuing. And so there's a way that I can live out both of those calls because they both were real calls instead of how I had always been thinking of it before is these are two mutually exclusive things and this is the way it has to be and it's 0 or it's 100. So I feel a lot of gratitude and relief and peace about all of that.
That's wonderful. What about you, Emily? How are you finding your career post-graduation?
Yeah,
I know you're multi-talented, so you could be doing everything you want.
too kind. So I interned with Deloitte in consulting after my junior year and have essentially been with them since then, which I think has been really interesting. And I think that I've gotten to grow a lot within that role. I think that when I first started, I was working for a big retail company, maybe doing work that I wasn't as excited about, but I was kind of just finding my way and figuring things out and figuring out what it meant to be graduated and starting to do some of the adult things on my own and things like that are just a lot, frankly. And so I think that time was almost just like, okay, we're figuring this out. I'm not sure if this is the total long-term plan for me right now, but I think I felt like it was a good place to be. I think that since then, I've just gotten to learn a lot and I think almost gain a lot of confidence in my abilities and in what I'm able to do. And I think that that's helped to give me a clearer vision, I guess, for what I want and what I actually can ask for in the future, which I think has been a really cool thing. So since I've stuck with Deloitte, I've kind of shifted from that retail space that I was in earlier into more of like a life sciences, healthcare focus, which I think has been really interesting and feels a little bit more tangible to me versus working for the marketing departments for some of the largest retailers in the world, where you're like, do they really need my help? Versus now, I think getting to be a little bit more hands-on and even just growing in the role and gaining new responsibilities. I think that it's been something that I've really enjoyed. And I think that learning to navigate the corporate world and what that's meant, I mentioned the confidence that has come with that, but I think more than that, it almost gives you like some insight into what's possible. When I look down the line, I'm thinking about business school maybe in the near future and continuing to use those. I think the piece that I like about my job now and some of those more general business roles is the piece where you get to kind of use like the logical side of your brain as well as the people side. And it's both of those things. And it's the soft skills and the technical skills really coming together, which I think was a lot of my BC experience too. So yeah, when I look down the line, I think business school would be a great thing to further that education and get to dive back into some things that I maybe ran out of time for at BC almost. And I could see myself one day wanting to work for myself or start some kind of business or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty open-ended for now, but I think that I have been really lucky to land here for my first few years out of college. There's just a ton of resources, and it's just been great to feel like very supported in this job while you're figuring out so many other things. So So yeah, definitely a different experience from from Sam with the consulting world, but I think that it's been good to me.
That's great. It sounds like you've each found your own voice and you found your place where you're comfortable right now. So how is married life? What was it like to be young grads getting married? Tell me some of the fun. What's going on with the both of you?
It was a ton of fun. So we, like I mentioned, got married in July. We got engaged, I think the July before that. So there was a lot of wedding planning leading up to it. But the wedding itself was just so much fun. And I think such a cool thing to get to bring all of those people together and celebrate. And it was just a great way, I think, to kind of kick off the marriage. And then since then, we've moved from Boston to Denver. That was about a week after our wedding. We moved out here, and I think it's been a lot of fun to feel like we're starting our lives together in a new place where a lot of things do feel totally new, but at the same time, we still have some old friends out here and family and things like that. I'll let Sam add anything here, but we also did just get a puppy. So that's been a new addition. And it's been a ton of fun, but also presented some challenges.
Emily's mom's over in the other room watching him right now.
I know. We're taking all the help we can get at the moment.
That's excellent.
A funny story I'll add to sort of close the loop on the whole priesthood discernment thing as it pertains to this. While I was in grad school at BC, I did my ministry field placement in the Philippines for the summer of 2023. So I was living on a farm run by a group of sisters from the Sisters of the Sacred Heart, hosting retreats and planting lettuce and leading Bible studies, all that good stuff. And a bishop from Manila was staying on the farm the last week that I was there. And in the church there, at least in the area I was, it was much more of a perception that, like, if you're a guy who is interested, who's doing ministry work, like, you're going to become a priest. And so he said to me on one of my last nights there, at this point, I should explain, Emily came out to the Philippines at the end for a trip, and that was when I proposed to her. So at this point, I've already made all the plans. I've talked to her parents, gotten their blessing. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. We've shut the door on the priesthood thing. And this bishop says to me as dinner is finishing, I know when I see somebody who's called to the priesthood, it's like I have this metal detector in my brain, and it just goes off when I see someone who's meant for the consecrated life.
Wow.
And it's going off right now. And then he goes, don't hesitate. Don't wait until it feels clear. Just come join us.
Oh my gosh.
And there were a couple of nuns who I'd been with all summer sitting at the table with us who already knew my plans to get down on one knee in like 6 days. And so we're walking, we leave dinner, I go to sleep, and the next morning I wake up and go to breakfast, and one of the nuns is waiting there and goes, "Did you sleep?" And I was like, "I slept just fine. I'm ready to go." But it was almost like a nice final moment of, yep, we're ready. But yeah, married life has been great. Moving out here and being really close to Emily's family has been a cool experience for me, because we've always been close, but now it really feels like we're all family.
Yeah.
And that's just because we are. and that's just been a blast. And having the puppy as of 9 days ago, taking care of someone else together has been just like such a blast. And we just have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hanging out, and it feels like a really special time right now, being here in Denver close to her family and with the dog. But it also feels like just knowing that we're married and committed to each other forever. It's so exciting to think of what we're headed towards in the future too.
I couldn't agree with you more. What are your hopes for sort of the near future? Emily, it sounds like you're thinking about business school. Sam, it sounds like you have some high schoolers and some curriculum, right? And now there's the new puppy. It sounds like you've got a pretty full plate right now, right?
I would say so. Yeah. I think that near term for me, it's business school and finishing that up and that sort of thing. And then I think when we think beyond that, Sam and I are really excited at the idea of having a family. But I think in case my mom's listening from the door over, it's probably still a few years away at this point. But that's been such a fun part of this time. I was just really getting to hang out with my brothers who are both in college out here. my parents who moved just an hour away from us in Denver, they're out in the mountains, getting to spend time with them and really focus on that. And when we go back to Wisconsin and Chicago, where Sam's family is, I think we've been really trying to prioritize some of those relationships, which has been a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that the next few years kind of contain more of that, more time with the family, more fun memories with our friends and stuff like that.
It's wonderful. I have to ask you before we wrap up, and thank you so much for sharing so much through this conversation. But I'm teaching a capstone this semester, a new core capstone. Senior, every minute of every day is overwhelming and precious at the same time. As soon as the snow starts melting in Boston, there's going to be a lot of feelings about the past 4 years and the 4 years to come. So any advice that you have for graduating seniors, some sort of takeaway that you might give to them?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest kind of adjustment post-grad, and I maybe touched on this a little bit, but, BC does such an incredible job of providing so many opportunities for fun. And I think that's so important. I heard in another podcast a reference to building resilience and things like that. Good things in life really comes from having this tapestry of fun memories to look back on. And I've thought about that a lot in the years since I graduated, because I think when you do graduate, all of a sudden that responsibility of creating your fun memories really starts to fall on you. And BC is not there as much to do that for you. I think the amazing thing is you're still taking all the relationships and friends that you make with you, which definitely makes it a lot easier. And so many of our favorite memories, I think, since graduating have been with those people that we also have amazing memories at BC with. But yeah, I think the biggest adjustment for me was, oh, hang on, I actually need to put some work into this now. It's not just happening all around me all the time. The fun isn't just everywhere or in the mod over or things like that. And you kind of have to really be intentional about it. And I think since I started doing that, it just makes kind of everything feel better in life. All of the work and the chores and the other stuff that you kind of have to deal with more when you graduate. I think it helps balance it out a lot. So that's what I would say. Sam?
Two things that I'm thinking about. The first, I've just recently been doing in my high school senior class, drawing on Ignatian meditations. And one of his practices is when you're facing a big decision, imagine yourself at the end of your life, or like imagine yourself on your deathbed. You are in your final moments, and now think back to where you are right now from the perspective of the very end of your life. It's a little dramatic, but it makes things clear. What will you wish then that you did now? When it's all said and done, how will you wish you handled this situation right now? And I think it's helpful for the seniors in high school. It was a super helpful practice for them to think, with 3 months left in high school, what are the conversations I need to have? What are the grudges I'm still holding that I need to, when I think about myself from the end of my life, I know I want to get over that at some point. So what are those things that I need to say or do before that graduation day rolls around? And I think that maybe would be a helpful practice for college seniors as well. That's going to be different for everybody. So my advice on exactly what you need to get done isn't going to be helpful for most. The last couple of years, I served as the graduate assistant for the freshman league program. And something that I shared in kind of my closing speech to the seniors last year was that I always had a bit of especially in my first year out of college, I had a rocky relationship with the phrase, "go set the world aflame." Because I remember hearing it over and over again at BC, and especially senior year. Like, you're graduating from BC, now it's time for you to go set the world aflame. And it's such a beautiful message, but it's also like, oh my gosh, I'm 22 years old. What in the heck I'm about to go work this remote job and be sitting in my apartment, getting out of my bed at 8:58 a.m. for my first Zoom call at 9 a.m. and then sit on an Excel file, which is great. But like, I remember sitting there doing that thinking, what does go set the world aflame mean for me now? And I've talked to so many other people first year out of college that have struggled with that same feeling. You graduated from this awesome school and
just feel like you're not doing enough.
Yeah. So it's this beautiful message, but I think it can feel really overwhelming. And what I shared with them in this speech was like, I started to really think about like, what does it actually mean? How does the world get quote unquote set aflame? And the image that I think of is at Easter Vigil or a Christmas candlelight mass at BC, how the church gets lit up is one person's candle gets lit first, and then they pass that candle, the light, along to the person right next to them, and then they pass it along to the person right next to them. It's not that magically some person snaps a finger and everybody's candle is lit, but rather that it's the process of people tending to the person right next to them and then spreading it from there that ultimately leads to everybody's candle being lit. And so that's the reason I thought of that is like, it is more than okay in your first year out of college to just tend to your own candle. If you can just keep your own candle lit and active, there are so many challenges that may arise with that year and with adulting. And if you don't feel like you can totally go set the world aflame right away, that's more than okay. And then when your candle is in a good place and you feel ready to go turn to that person right next to you, then go do it. But just turn to the person right next to you, because that's all we really can do. You don't need to save the world in your first year out of BC. So that was what I shared with them last year, and I think it's a good message. Tend to your own candle, and when you're ready, turn to the person that's right in front of you, right next to you, and see if you can light theirs too.
Well, thank you both so much for your continuing time and care and commitment to Boston College, and for really providing a light to students, faculty, alum, and others who may listen to this talk this evening. And one thing that comes away from this conversation with the two of you is that the greatest of these is love. So thank you both so much. Really, it's wonderful to catch up again with you, Emily and Sam. I agree with everything I've heard. Wonderful. So much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of GodPods. For more faith resources, visit our website at bc.edu/C21 or find us on social media at C21 Center.